I'm not gonna lie, I thought The Lie of the Land was amazing. Easily the best episode of Series 10 so far, and probably one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. Never mind Heaven Sent, or Genesis of the Daleks, or The Day of the Doctor, or Blink, this was just something else. Such a tight script, no hint of any plot holes whatsoever. Brilliantly structured, and one of the most plausible resolutions of any recent episode. Honestly, this episode exceeded my expectations ridiculously. It's Doctor Who at its very, very best. Hey, what's this? Regeneration energy coming out of my hands. Ta-da! Did I have you fooled? I hope so. Yep, that was a blatant parody of the 12th Doctor in this week's episode. Everything I've just said was a lie. Which means, unfortunately, the truth, or veritas, is, well, I hate to say it, but I found The Lie of the Land not great. I wouldn't go as far as saying I hated it or it's one of the worst episodes ever, but it's the weakest of the series so far. I don't know if I'm being a bit too harsh. I mean, it was okay, but average at best. I'm going to be the optimist though and start with the positives first. The pre-title scene, for instance, was very disturbing. Excusing the reused Dalek, Cyberman and Weeping Angel footage, why not shoot some stuff specially as if it was a minisode, or Doctor Who experience piece? But anyway, that aside, I liked the use of familiar clips and images from Earth's history. Integrating the monks into so many past events, and showing us all these statues and all sorts of foreign cities, made their tyranny seem so much more convincing. Another enemy from the past that has supposedly been with us since the very start is the Silence, but seeing is believing, as it were, and I think it worked considerably better to actually show us these events as clips in a montage, really cementing the monks in our minds and into our history, as if we are, like Bill, living in their corrupt, artificial world. And to be honest, for much of the first half, I was actually pretty convinced. The mystery of the Doctor seemingly going rogue was a nice diversion from what we're used to, and I enjoyed seeing Bill's reunion with Nardole, or Nardi, and then their mission to recover the Doctor. And although I wasn't completely fooled by the whole "I have joined the monks" thing, watching Bill's confrontation with the Doctor play out was seriously unnerving. You still weren't quite sure, as the viewer, or the fan, what was real and what wasn't. Has the Doctor secretly got some kind of plan? Is this person even the Doctor? Or are we just living in some kind of computer simulation again, like in Extremis? Kudos to Toby Whithouse, who I thought wrote this scene exceptionally. Right down to the Doctor's regeneration, you couldn't help but feel half convinced. But of course, at the back of our minds, we all knew that this wasn't the end. The moment had barely been prepared for. The payoff to the Doctor's regeneration, teased endlessly in trailers, was always going to be slightly disappointing to a certain extent. But I think Whithouse just about got away with it, due to the nature of this mind-bending story. It ties into the whole truth/lies theme very neatly. You're not sure what's real, what isn't, what's the truth, what's a lie. And of course it also works well because the 12th Doctor is actually going to regenerate fairly soon. We only actually have 5 episodes with him left. Yeah, I know, it's sad, isn't it? A weird thought. And it also works because it's the 12th Doctor. From the start, Capaldi's incarnation has been very unpredictable and difficult to work out and determine. Given how he's treated past companions and friends, it makes perfect sense for him to put Bill through the ringer and lead her to believe that he has actually turned on her. That her reaction is different to Clara, who would have probably just slapped him and then walked off somewhere, is also a welcome move. But I'm afraid to say that from this point on, for me, The Lie of the Land fell on its face a bit. The first thing I must address is that while the first half is very thrilling and enjoyable, there are some plot holes that I just can't gloss over. First of all, the whole 6 months thing since the end of the Pyramid at the End of the World, I liked that in a way, but also, you do kind of think, why hasn't the Doctor acted sooner? Why has he posed as a prisoner of the monks? Why has he done the broadcasts? Surely he didn't actually need to do that. As far as I can see, it's just a device to make the audience think he has actually joined the monks. And then Bill shooting the Doctor. At the time, I didn't really think much of it, but in hindsight, and after reading other people's reviews and thinking about it a bit, it seems ever so unlikely that she would actually ever release the trigger and actually shoot him, even though he was being very irritating, very out of character, And I suppose, yeah, it's the whole truth and lies thing, what's real, what isn't. She was obviously quite disturbed by the whole thing, 6 months living in a dystopian world. But at the same time, I just can't see any companion actually willingly shooting the Doctor. So, yeah, and that obviously only really contributed to the spectacle of the Doctor's fake regeneration, which was also for the viewers' benefit and for the trailers. It wasn't really necessary to the plot in any way. It was a bit self-indulgent, for want of a better phrase, really. So apart from all of that, the second half, well, to say the least, there was just far too much going on. Whilst I enjoyed finally seeing the Doctor open the vault, Missy's return felt a little bit anticlimactic and out of place. Although the monks and their scheme was very much the focus of all the Doctor's conversation with her, and Bill and Nardole thereafter, I feel that Missy's reappearance overshadowed the monks in a way, stealing their screen time, because while the monks were there at the start in that chilling montage in the pre-titles, and towards the end in the pyramid and guarding the pyramid, and then when they're overthrown at the end, they weren't in it quite as much as you would have thought, given that they are, that the leaders of this oppression, this regime. And also another thing that bugs me is that we never found out who the monks are, where they came from, what they want, why they've actually, done this, why they've taken over Earth, what their motivation is. The whole thing about the labour camps, what are they about, what are they for, why do they need humans as slave labour, are they killing them, or what? What is the actual end goal? Is it just a need to be desired, to have that consent and be appreciated and welcomed? I suppose a power thing, really. They have to be in control of lesser races. Maybe that's it, I don't know. It wasn't made too clear in any of these three stories, and as for all of them, you would have thought that in the finale of the Monk trilogy, we might find out a little bit more, but no, they just go off in their pyramid. And also, for a race that's modelled all of human history, every possible outcome in their simulations, surely they wouldn't just give up after being overthrown. Surely they'd come back with another scheme. They would have prepared for the eventuality because of these simulations, and that makes them intimidating and threatening. But I kind of felt a bit of the threat was lost because they didn't follow through with that. And yeah, that was a shame. But by far, my biggest gripe with The Lie of the Land is that ending. Gone are the days of lovey-dovey resolutions in Doctor Who, I thought. Unfortunately, however, I was wrong. Admittedly, I had thought as much after reading some pre-broadcast reviews, but went into the episode with an optimistic approach, obviously, hoping and praying that however sentimental the ending was, it would actually work. So, what can I say? Well, it was basically just like the Rings of Akhaten all over again. On a serious note though, it was just a bit too far-fetched in my opinion, that this imagined memory of Bill's mum could overpower the monks' regime. With their simulations, they should have prepared for the eventuality and come bouncing back and fighting back with some kind of plan B. Another element I wasn't a big fan of was how they completely overplayed and over-exaggerated the I'm about to die element with regards to Bill. I think on more than one occasion we had that scene where she's like, goodbye Doctor, I've got to do this, I've got to sacrifice myself. And we just know she's not going to. Especially in a story where we've already seen the Doctor fake his own death. You can't really get away with both the Doctor and Bill seemingly being so close to death in the same story and make it work and make it plausible. It just didn't ring true with me, unfortunately. So not the best episode this week, unfortunately. In fact, regrettably, it's the weakest of the run so far, in my opinion, by far. It's a shame, but still commendable to have had such a consistent run of episodes so far. The first 7 I've absolutely loved for the most part. So good work, Moffat. Now on to next week. Ice Warriors, Mars, 1881, Victorian soldiers. Empress of Mars looks absolutely bonkers, but in the best way possible. I just absolutely cannot believe it's taken 50 years for us to get, well, firstly, a story where the Ice Warriors are actually on Mars, their home planet, and 4 years since they returned in New Who to get a proper outing for them, i.e. with more than one Ice Warrior on screen at one time. Because while Cold War was, well, okay, we only had Skaldak. He was a lone Ice Warrior, and in a way that was a bit anticlimactic, I think, a bit unfulfilling. It looks great that we're going to be actually having more than one Ice Warrior on screen at one time in this story. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing them back in full force. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely epic. So, that brings us to the end of another Series 10 review. Ultimately, The Lie of the Land wasn't terrible. It had some good concepts and enjoyable moments. But overall, it didn't quite deliver as satisfying an end to the Monk trilogy as it could have done, due to an unconvincing ending and some plot holes. Executed in a slightly different way, with more emphasis on the monks and their motivations throughout, this story could have been up there with the other strong entries to Series 10 so far, but falls just short for me. So, thanks a lot, as always, for watching this review. If you liked it, I'd really appreciate you checking out my recent review of Big Finish's Unit Assembled. I uploaded it the other day, and it's not been seen by many people. Now look, I know Big Finish doesn't have as big an audience as Doctor Who, but at the same time, I'd appreciate it if people would actually just give the video a chance, because it's very much the same sort of style as these reviews, my Series 10 reviews, and yeah, you know, you might learn something new, you might enjoy it, you might go off and get into Big Finish and buy some audios, so please do give my review of Unit Assembled a chance. I'll put the link up on the screen now, or in the description, or somewhere like that on a card. But back to The Lie of the Land. Please let me know what you thought of it in the comments below, and I'll see you next week for my review of Empress of Mars. Bye for now, guys.